Welcome to School Facilities and Operations. I'm Burke Jones. I'm the creator and host of this podcast, but really what makes it special is the type of people that I have on here and the conversations that we have. So I have a couple different types of episodes. One is I bring on trade partners that either I work with or other people have worked with, maybe a roofer, a paving guy, flooring people, those kind of things, and really pick their brain about what we need to know as facility management professionals in the K-12 world. And then the other type I have, which is probably my favorite type of episode, is where I bring another person on that's in the facility management theater, either in K-12 or, as in today's guest, formerly K-12 arena. And we just have a conversation over coffee, or if we met each other at a conference, and we just see what's going on, what can we learn from each other, and just have a great conversation. So today I am honored that Tony Barron has joined us for this episode. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Burke. Appreciate you having me.
I've been looking forward to this. I know we had to reschedule once, and so I'm really looking forward to it. So Tony is the director of facilities for the Johnson County government, Johnson County, Kansas government. So that's up kind of in I would say, Kansas City metro area. And so Tony, give us a little background on yourself, like how you got to this position and kind of what path your career took.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate somebody in our field taking advantage of all the networking that we have and asking how everybody does things. It's definitely advantageous for everyone. So, yeah, I started in city government probably, I think it was back in 2000, I started at a lower level, entry level position just as a park maintenance guy, and spent in a small town of Winfield, Kansas. Kind of knew after 4 or 5 years that I wanted more opportunity, something a little bit bigger, and had the opportunity to move to Lawrence then, and spent 2004 to 2010 with Lawrence Parks and Rec. Really enjoyed it. Had a great time there. Learned a lot. But I was ready to blaze a trail and ready to. Government felt a little slow for me, so I thought I'd try the private world. Got into financial services and into some work at a sod farm. And at that time, the Great Recession was in place there from 2009 to roughly 2011. So things didn't work out so well. Ended up getting laid off there in 2010, and going back to work for the city of Lawrence there in 2011. So just a learning lesson for me. It helped me appreciate government work and how stable and how stable it is, and just how wonderful it is back into public service.
Right.
2013, I was fortunate enough to get opportunity to be a director of facilities for Lawrence Public Schools. Spent almost 8 years there, Burke, managing bond projects. And as I said earlier, we before we got on the air, managed roughly $180 million worth of bond projects, 27 projects in a span of about 7.5 years. So it was like a drag race.
Yeah.
Every day it was a drag race, and schools are a drag race anyway when it comes to capital projects, right? I felt like I was driving five drag race cars at once. Learned a lot, learned so much there.
Well, so how did you go from, I guess, Lawrence Parks to, I guess, the director of facilities and operations at Lawrence? Did you know somebody there, or did you just see it advertised and applied, or how did that become about?
Yeah, it was interesting how that did come about. So I had just kind of struggled there and with advancing there at the city of Lawrence, and just for whatever reason, was always second place, right? Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, or the groomsman in our case, I guess. Always the groom, never the groom. And I went through some frustration. I was getting just, I wanted to lead. I wanted to be in a leadership position. Little did I know today I know you can lead from anywhere, but kind of got the opportunity. I met a gentleman at church who was the assistant superintendent for Lawrence Public Schools. Our conversations probably lasted a total of 10 minutes, but I had some information that I had written an IPM manual, integrated pest management manual, for City of Lawrence. I helped write it. and they were looking to do something for the Lawrence Public Schools. So we connected via email. His wife and I did some work on the side with the youth group at the church, and we were at church camp one summer, and she said, "Hey, Kyle wants to talk to you when you get back from camp." And I was thinking, why would he want to talk to me, right? And so I got a hold of him when I got back on Friday, and he just said, "Hey, just one of those faith things where he's like, I got some candidates here, don't really feel real comfortable with any of them, and you've been on my mind, and would you be interested?" And so filled out an application, spent the weekend doing that, and got called in. I think I went through a 3-interview process and was chosen to lead them in 2013. So yeah, it was a little bit of
Wow.
a different path.
That's awesome. That
Yeah,
is
it was pretty cool.
that is really cool. It's interesting how many people come to these roles by people they know, either recommending them or like just bringing them along with you. So that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it was good. And like I said, it's amazing how patience prevails. I had interviewed for 3 positions in management with the city of Lawrence, and it just didn't pan out. And
Yeah.
become satisfied, I thought I'm just going to be happy with where I'm at. And the minute I did that, opportunity really came on. So
That's awesome. So you were there for a long time, did a lot of work in a short period of time with some bond projects. So then when did you move over to, I guess, the county government side?
yeah, so from 20, let's see, I was there at Lawrence from 2013 to 2021. Decided just needed a little bit of a break, a different look. I ended up at Blue Valley Schools for 2 years, from 21 to 23, and kind of this just a recharge, Burke. It was one of those
Yeah.
where mentally I just needed a break from being a facilities director. People at Blue Valley were so good to me. I kind of had a great time. They kind of re-energized me. I took a little bit of a lesser role, kind of got me grounded again, and just kind of helped me reset. And then my friend Matt Dedecki from Leavenworth, we were at a facilities breakfast one day. Same deal. I wasn't interested, wasn't looking. He said, "Hey, if you're interested, there's a facility director position open with Johnson County government." So I thought, oh, thanks for letting me know, and went home and told my wife about it. My wife really never encourages me one way or the other. She just says, "Hey, whatever you feel, go ahead and do whatever you feel like is best for you." And I told her about it, and she goes, "You need to apply." And I was like, well, that was different, because that's not something you usually tell me. So I don't know what she saw in me or what my demeanor was. I think she did, Burke. I think she saw that I was getting bored.
Uh-huh.
Came along with a little bit of anxiety, probably just not, I probably subconsciously didn't know about it, but I think she could see that I needed more of a challenge.
Uh-huh.
So applied for that job and was called, I believe it was late January of 2023 of this year,
Oh,
and
wow.
offered the position, and extremely excited. Started here on March 20th of this year. And here I am about 7.5 months later, enjoying it.
Nice. Well, that's the thing. If you can enjoy it and after 7 months you're still enjoying it, that's a good sign.
Yes, it is.
So before we move on, tell me one thing about you that we can't learn about on LinkedIn. Maybe it's a hobby or it's something you like to do, just something more personal.
Yeah, I tell you what I do. I mental health has become a big deal for me the last probably, or ever since I've been in a director's position. Um, it's amazing how the mental stress of a position will physically wear you out. And I
Yes.
didn't really understand that until 2013 when I got into that position. So probably 5 to 6 years into that position with Lawrence, I learned how to relax. And for me, I love being outside in nature. I love going to the mountains. If I could just disappear in the mountains for a couple days, that's my getaway. It just is soothing. It's rewarding. Usually, if I'm in a national park, there's no cell service. Just last October, I went to Colorado. My wife had a conference in Denver, and I told her, I said, "Hey, I'm going to tag along with you. You don't even have to talk to me. All I need is a bed to sleep in. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to disappear in the mountains every day." So I would tell her, I was like, hey, I'm going to be on this road today. If you don't hear from me by 4 o'clock, then you probably should call somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, love disappearing in the mountains around Kansas. I just try to find some good nature trails to walk on and just to recharge. That's what I enjoy.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I I enjoy going on hikes, but I just don't do it enough.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find it kind of re-grounds you and re-centers you by getting outside, or is it the physical activity, or is it what do you think makes it good for you?
Yeah, it's a combination. The physical activity, per my doctor, you should exercise, right? Per everybody's doctor should exercise a little bit. That's not my primary motivator. Um, there's something about the love of nature. You know, my degree is in park resource management, and so being a kind of affiliated or just learning about national parks, the history of it, and just a place to get away. The best times that I have is when I leave my phone in the vehicle. You know,
Yeah.
if I can do that, it's really rewarding. But I do that probably about 50% of the time. I do have a Garmin GPS watch that I'll just click on and kind of help me track. I've never been places where I'm truly going to get lost, but
Right.
kind of helps you track your steps and your miles and all that. And that's kind of fun. But yeah, it just is, it's just something that I enjoy, the sounds of nature, the birds, the animals. Um, I like crisp mornings, you know, love watching the sunrise and the sunset. So all of that just kind of just enjoyable to me.
Nice. Well, it's good you found what you like, and what um gives you that relaxation. So what so you're 7 months in to the county government side. What are the biggest surprises I guess in the facility management aspect between county government and the school system?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think, for me, probably the biggest aha moment that I had was the amount of resources that we have here in county government, particularly Johnson County. You know, I felt like when we were in the schools, we had good resources, good people, but just not enough of them. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
always felt like we were playing. I've always felt like we are playing catch up. Now, granted, you have to remember that I lived through the bond that I spoke about earlier. So, not sure if I ever got a true taste of what a true facility director was when
Right.
he was in Lawrence or Blue Valley. But here in Johnson County, it's nice to sit down and take a breath. And most of my days are 7 to 4:30 or 5. We don't have a lot of after hour things that go on in our buildings, and so that's very nice to know that the doors are closing at 5 o'clock. Do not get a lot of extra calls. When I do get the calls, we have guys who are on call who come in and do the work rather than
Yeah.
me responding and then trying to figure out who to call. So the pace is a little bit slower, which took me a little bit of getting used to. But the advantage of that is it allows me to be a strategic facility director. You know, it allows me to plan. It allows me to do things and plan in advance versus reaction, which I felt like I was doing a lot of that in the schools.
It's funny. We were talking about that before. Um, I've been here 4 years and I came in the middle of a bond issue. So 70% of my time was running the bond work and then trying to learn the rest of my job. And it was very fast paced and it was all reactive. Like everything I was doing was reactive. Some of that was because I was new, right? But
Right.
some of it was because I didn't have time to do that forward looking planning and thinking. And now that our bond's over, it has definitely been an adjustment. I mean, I can relate. It's I have more time to think like strategically and look at data and make plans versus just being totally reactive. Now, there's still reactive decisions every day, but it definitely has been a change of pace. And I feel like, just like you, I feel like I've been able to kind of like slow down and really be more of a facility manager instead of just a guy that's making, snap decisions all day long. So cool. So how many, I guess, how big of a, how do I ask this question? Like, how many square feet do you guys have? Or like, how many buildings do you have?
Right. Yeah, it is a good question. We have right around 3 million square feet here
Okay.
in Johnson County. Probably the other thing too, when I talk about buildings, yeah, roughly 3 million square feet. I think we have about 61 buildings. Now depends on what constitutes a building, right?
Right.
We have some outbuildings, some other buildings, but occupied spaces that need higher attention, right around 60. So yeah, it keeps us moving. We're spread out all over the county, which is probably a challenge I hadn't had before, the
Hmm.
distance that we have to cover. And so that's been a little bit different. But when you talk buildings and square footage, probably, Burke, one of the biggest challenges for me has been the different types of programs that we run. I think about it coming from a school, when I was in Lawrence, we had 700 and some plus classrooms. You had office spaces, and we're all, for the most part, with the exception of dividing classrooms up into K2, 2-5, middle school, and high school. For the most part, we were designing everything the same way because it was a school. Here
Right.
we have mental health facilities, adult detention centers, DMVs, office space, the county courthouse. So there are lots of different programs, which has caused me to learn a lot of different functions, which
Oh
is
yeah.
pretty darn exciting. I really enjoy it. I mean, I've toured most of the buildings so far. Um, so yeah, that's been the scope of it is there. 201 employees in our department. The county itself employs 4,200 people.
Wow.
We serve over 600,000 residents, and so it's just been every day I'm learning something new about the county that I didn't know before. So
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting.
That is super exciting. That was going to be my question, is how many of the 60 some buildings have you actually been in your first 7 months? So sounds like
Uh,
quite a few.
yeah, I'd have to look at my calendar. Yeah, there's been days. That was my first 3 or 4 months. Was I just want to get out and meet the people. Uh,
Yeah.
that was a big deal when I was hired. Culture and engagement was a high priority for our
Yeah.
department, and so it's something that comes fairly natural to me. Thankfully, I don't have to work very hard at that part, and so it's been nice to get out and see our frontline employees, primarily our custodial and maintenance staff. They're the ones out in the buildings, so to
Yeah.
see them, it's been really good. But yeah, I still have places to go and names to learn. I see them at the all staff picnics, and I know I had a conversation with them, and I'm just struggling. I'm thinking, okay, I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but one of my goals is get to know all their names.
Yeah. I just don't have any problem saying I know we met. Like I just cannot pull your name because they only have to remember one name,
Mhm.
and we have to remember 150 in my case.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's right.
So, and you don't see everybody every day. It's hard to know some of those people out in the buildings doing the work. And,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm like you, I like to get out.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I think that's really unique, and the thing that um, I was hopeful this position would allow me to do, is to lead more. And I think across the board, everybody I talk to, if you like to lead, being in facilities management as a director level or whatever the title is a fantastic opportunity for that. Um, so I guess let's talk a little bit about that. Has that been your experience also?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's just been I came in, I was fortunate enough when I was in college, I worked for the athletic department at Kansas State University and was able to work the athletic events as security details. So I was fortunate enough to progress through that system and had a fairly large group of employees that I was able to lead, manage, however you would called it back then, and really enjoyed it. But I had a supervisor back then, Jim Moeller, who would always kind of pull me in and say, talk to me about leadership and say, if you want to progress in this world, you have to be a good leader. And he kind of set that tone for me a little bit, which was very nice. When I actually stepped in, and it's one thing to lead a smaller crew, right? A task-oriented crew, you have a very clear objective, hey,
Right.
let's go accomplish this task. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it safely. And then there's some leadership involved in that. But at this level, you have some very high level thinking. A lot of strategy goes into it, and you and I both know the politics come into it also.
Right.
The part that I love the most about the leadership is the fact that I've learned a lot from people who I've worked with about how some of the great ways to lead. And then I've been part of organizations and other areas where absolutely not. This is not what I want to be part of, right? Um, I've seen a little bit of everything, and which really fostered my style was I want to be included in things. I don't necessarily need to be the one making the decision, but I would love to share the valuable input that I have and explain the rationale behind it. And a boss can take it or leave it, right? Uh,
Right.
that's up to them. They're ultimately the ultimate decision maker on that. But what I love about leading here at Johnson County is the fact that they support a lot of leadership principles. But they call it parallel. They call it a parallel group. Like for instance, we have spaces that we'll step into where all the titles go down the drain. We're all in this at the same level, from our county manager down to the assistant directors and the directors. We'll sit in a group, and they call it, this is a parallel work group today. So nobody's opinion trumps the others. We're going to have consensus on our decisions. And that's leadership at its best right there, when you
Oh
can
yeah.
have the ability to talk through things and get the opinions of, for me, a voice for the people in the field is a big deal. They're the ones going to accomplish the work, and they should be heard. And granted, they may not have the whole picture, but I think they need to be listened to and to be considered as far as what ideas they have to offer.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I think in our district, we have kind of twice a month director level meetings with, I think, 9 of us. And I would say it's pretty much that way. Um, our superintendent is an incredible leader, and she wants to hear everybody's thoughts. And so it's really fun to be in that kind of an organization. I'm the facilities guy. I'm in conversations about special education programs. I'm in conversations about curriculum, security. Some IT. Not that I understand all those, but I can at least address a situation to some level. And that's kind of what our goal is on our leadership, that we all know a little bit about what everybody's doing. So if a parent asks a question or a staff member asks a question, we can at least talk enough about it to get to the next person that can give them the real answer. And I would imagine in county government, that's like that on steroids when you have how many people did you say you support in the county? 600,000?
Yeah, 600,000 constituents within
Yeah.
the county. So
I'm trying to imagine the amount of communication that people want, and it would be impossible to hit.
right.
So yeah, you guys probably get feedback all of the time from your constituents about everything.
Yeah, the county has done a great job of setting up those avenues for people to provide feedback. And we I don't know what the right words to call it is. I call it kind of small box leadership, is when you have the ability for every department to kind of lead in their own way, but still honor the principles of the county. And
Yeah.
so they've done a great job of supporting that here. And granted, it can make life a little difficult when you're trying to make decisions on consistency, but at the same time, every department, like I said, 30 different departments, we're all operating in a little bit of a different manner. So, but the avenues are there. Like I said, overall, I think Johnson County government has done a great job of providing the mechanism for feedback and getting it into the right hands and giving that opportunity, and
Yeah.
empowering the employees to make decisions based on that feedback without having to make an organizational change, I think is a big deal too.
I think that's huge. Um, I've tried to do that here, like with my maintenance guys. Like, look, if you don't need my permission every time you want to fix something. Like, just go get it done. If it's $500, just go fix it.
Right.
So, but it takes a long time to build that level of trust. And I can imagine an organization that big, that's definitely been that way. That culture has probably been that way for a long time. Because otherwise it would take several years to accomplish something like that.
Right. Yeah, they've been building. I think in 2014 they started a program called LEAP, Leadership Empowers All Employees.
Oh, wow.
And so we're just roughly, I take that back. Yeah, 2012, I believe. So it's in its 11th year. And so that's really setting the stage. And I see some momentum in that area as far as our executive leadership team wanting to continue to honor that and support our employees. But we're trying to make a intentional effort to get all of our employees through those programs.
Yeah. So, what I'll share one of my favorite books on leadership is The Five Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. Have you ever read that?
Yes, I have. It's been many years, but yes, I have read that one.
So, the reason I like that book is it's almost an instruction manual. So, if you have somebody that you just hired or just let's say a young person or even an old person, it doesn't even matter if they've had experience or not. Once they have a title, the idea is that there's 5 levels of leadership that they can step up to. So like the first one is people follow you because they have to. Tony Barron, director of facilities management, people are going to follow you because they have to. But the cool thing about this book is it says, okay, to get to the next level, here are the kind of things you need to do. And then here are going to be what your challenges are. And all the way up to level 5. Hardly anybody makes it to level 5, just a little spoiler. But most of us live, I would say, in that level 2 to 3 world where people want to do things for us because they trust us and they see your vision, basically. But that takes time, like to go from like they're following you because of your title to they're following you because they want to. And it all comes down to forming that relationship. It's kind of what you referred to earlier, is getting out and meeting people where they're at and getting to know them, having conversations about families and kids and wives and vacation spots and all that kind of stuff. That's what gets you to the level 2. And I think that's it perfectly. Maybe why I like the book is it perfectly embodies how I act. You know, I like asking questions about people's lives and getting to know them, and whether they ask about me or not, I don't care. Like,
Right.
you know, I like to learn about people. And so that's a very natural style for me. It also creates some challenges because I get to be friends with people. And then, if there's issues that you need to address on the business side of that relationship, it can make it more emotionally hard, but in many ways it's easier because you have a relationship with them.
Right. Yeah, and I think the back when I started in government, it was more of I wouldn't want to say authoritative is not the right word. That sounds very strong, but it was more along the lines of here's your task, kind of go do your job. And relationships were built more alongside the work environment rather than they weren't really intentional. I guess they were. I don't know if forced is not the right word, but it just kind of happened.
Right.
And today, like you said, I think personally, I think we spend more money on our human resources than we do our physical resources. Yet sometimes we tend to overmanage our technical resources and forget about our human resources.
Right.
So I think that building relationships part that you mentioned earlier, part of that John Maxwell, is a big deal. And the technical resources are really pretty easy. I mean, you either have the money to do a project or you don't, right?
Right.
You either can do it the Cadillac style or you have to do the Ford Focus. There's a couple different ways you can do that. That's really the easy part of our jobs, but getting out, taking the time, because everybody has the same amount of time in a day, right? When I don't use that as an excuse, everybody's afforded 24 hours a day, and we
Right.
choose how to manage that time. And so for me, it's being very intentional about getting out, seeing people, and doing my best to build that relationship. Which research is starting to show that will increase productivity. People aren't sticking around anymore because we have fancy things and nice buildings. They're sticking around because they feel like they're welcomed. They felt like they're part of the team.
Yep.
So definitely a good focus from a leadership perspective. But I do need to get back into that book. It's sitting on my shelf. As a matter of fact, I just saw it yesterday when I was looking around and did see it sitting up there.
I think it's interesting because you don't have to read the whole book. Like you could say, okay, I just started this job. I have this title. I want to advance. What do I need to do? You could just like read that chapter,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think too, you're at different places with different people. So you might be like a level 3 leader with one of your staff, but because you haven't invested in the relationship, you're not at that level with other people that work with you. So we talk about it, like with my supervisors, we talk about it a lot. Greenbush, you probably remember those guys from your Lawrence days, but they have a leaders of classified staff meeting twice a month where they went through that book last year. And so my people all got exposed to it. And so we're kind of using that internally at the supervisor level just to kind of see where we are with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have, so I think we've talked about some of this relationship leadership stuff, but what about on that more technical front? Do you guys have any like whiz bang tools where you're like capital forecasting 20 years in advance, or is it like the rest of us where you're working really hard to be as accurate as possible, but there's going to be gaps?
Yeah, I think your latter statement's probably about the same. We're working really hard to be as accurate as possible. We are lucky, and I'm, like I said, very fortunate to live in a county that has great financial resources. But we have several softwares, and probably for us is the challenge of getting the best out of these softwares rather than having multiple softwares that can do. Every software does something really great, and then it kind of tapers down where it gets average, kind of depending on which direction you go. There's not one, in my opinion, that I've experienced. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's one software out there that is the catch all, that I love every part of every module, right? So trying to find the priority for our department, what do we want to build around? Or we can just continue to live in our siloed information world of, we're going to pick this out of this one, pick it out of here, and somebody's going to build a spreadsheet that makes them talk to each other, right?
Right.
And that just takes time. And thankfully, I'm surrounded by people who are always looking to make improvements. Also see their frustration is if we only had, right? If we only had. But at the same time, I could probably walk into every other county in the state and even school districts, and I probably am the one who does have a lot of things that others don't. So
Right.
very fortunate for that, but that doesn't mean we still don't try to improve or try to make it better. But yeah, capital forecasting is a challenge. Getting the information right. For us, what's different a little bit, speaking of that, Burke, for us, we plan our cycle of capital projects. We're roughly 18 to 20 months out from implementation. So we have to forecast that far ahead. So right now we're getting ready to put together our requests for the 2026 budget cycle. I believe that's great. No, I take that back, 2025 budget cycle. So we're talking about that right now. So it's also for us, we have to be very intentional on making sure we're plugging in the right numbers and getting the right things in place. We have a magnificent strategic and planning lead employee in our department who goes around and talks to the departments and knows all the programming really well. And she is really good at putting this information together. So I'm very fortunate to have the human element of that, and works along with some software. But for the most part, she's doing a lot of the hard work.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you're budgeting that far out, 30% inflation. That's my prediction. That's my prediction.
Oh my gosh, isn't it horrible?
Well, it's lately it hasn't been far from that amount. I'm hearing about guys doing bonds and they're putting like 35% inflation factors on there.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's really, and then timing of everything. I mean, we're trying to get a project off the ground. Well, we came in with our study that we have. We kind of have some price ranges and just trying to figure out where we want to go. But every month that goes by that we don't get it approved and moving, I mean, you put that inflation factor on there, right? It's just going to get more expensive. So time is a friend more than ever right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, listen, Tony, anything else you want to share with us before we kind of come to an end?
I just appreciate you having me on here. You know, I love being part of the facility group. I love the conference, the school conference that we have every year, and was happy to be there again this year. I just hope that, you know, our field can continue to grow. I think we're taking some great strides, and I just hope we can, guys like you and I and other people in our network, can continue to mentor young professionals to help them realize there's so many great things going on. Public service and public government, in my personal view, may not be one of the, you see the board meetings play out and they get a little controversial, but behind all that, there's some great people working to do some great things. So being a public servant is something I've enjoyed. I've done it for over 20 years now, and I'm just hopeful that we can continue to recruit and retain our qualified staff and keep them headed in the direction for succession.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mission that we can provide, whether it's public government or school districts, it's more than just the profit, right?
Right.
It's about taking care of people. And I mean, in my case, it's kids. In your case, it's adults and kids. And I mean, that brings a lot of joy, I know, to me and probably to everybody that's in this role, or we wouldn't be here. But it's something that's very unique, and worthy of being shared to those younger than us. You talk about guys our age mentoring people. Just as I look at the demographics of who downloads this podcast, the bulk are, you know, between 50 and 60-year-olds. I can't remember the percentage, but it's significant. I think the 20 to 25-year-old age group are my two kids, you know, that they download it just to be nice to me.
Right.
So yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see. I do think there is a beginning movement of some facility management bachelor degree programs. So I think we'll see probably an increase in that, in like the educational background of people coming in. And then it will just be attracting them to the government and school jobs, I think, will be the next thing. So anyway, well, man, I really appreciate it, Tony. This has been fun. So I end every episode with 3 questions.
Okay.
Okay. So for you, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I've decided that I've grown tired of some of my other questions. So if you could snap your fingers and fix anything right now, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Oh, I think it would probably be poverty.
Absolutely. Good answer. Do you are you like a paper note taker guy, or do you like use your tablet or something all the time?
Matter of fact, I just invested about 4 months ago into an electronic tablet, but that's all it does. It's just note taking. I can't get on the web or anything else. I didn't want any distractions.
So which one did you get? Like Remarkable?
Remarkable, yes.
Yeah.
That is it. I love it. It's been great.
Yeah, I see there's a couple people here that have those. They love them. So
Yeah, it's been good to help me keep my focus. I'm not a good computer note taker. Got tired. I got notebooks stacked up in the corner here with paper in it, which has been good. Don't get me wrong, but hey, trying to be more friendly to the environment because I'm killing a lot of trees with all those notebooks.
exactly. So last question. If we were like to talk to your parents or family, what would they say that you did for a living?
Oh my gosh. Well, from my school days, I guess my immediate family, my boys, all they cared about is having a nice playground. Um, so I think the teachers would subliminally send messages home with them to say, "Tell your dad that it's cold in my room today or hot in
I'm
my
sure.
room." So that's from my kids. My wife, we just don't talk about work much. My parents will ask me how things are going. I think they understand the scope of what I do,
Uh-huh.
not necessarily the details,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would probably go back to my kids, which two of them are out of the house now, but they were in the Lawrence school system when I was working there, and yeah, they always had requests, so
Oh,
they
that's
knew
fun.
exactly what I could do. And the other part, you've probably been down this road, is they know that I have a big role in calling off school on snow days.
I
So
know.
there's a lot of influence, a lot of call, a lot of text messages behind the scenes there.
That's really funny. Well, I like asking that question because my parents, particularly my dad, watches every board meeting that I speak at, which is most of them. And
Mm-hmm.
then he calls me afterwards and dissects everything I said. So it's really fun. We have a good time. And um, I don't know, there's something kind of comforting and kind of nerve wracking standing there knowing that like your parents are watching you live on TV or on
Right.
YouTube. But
Mm-hmm.
well, Tony, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great talk, and enjoyed getting to know you also when we met in person at the KDPF earlier this month. So thanks for
Right.
being on.
Yeah, appreciate the time and thanks for having me.
So all of you listening, if you like the show, it will help us a lot if you review us on Apple iTunes or on Spotify. I really appreciate it. If you like the show, give us 5 stars. And I have a friend that says if you don't like the show, then email me and tell me why. Don't give me a 1 star. Um, and then if you guys have anybody that you would like for me to have on as a guest, someone you know or someone that you would love to hear from, just contact me on LinkedIn or and shoot me an email or whatever, and I'll do my best to get them on the show. Thanks again, Tony. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.